Today, let's dive into a fascinating topic that touches on both tradition and transformation: the winter solstice and how it's been celebrated through rituals, prayers, and the wisdom passed down through generations. It's curious how certain practices, like the offering of food or prayers during winter solstice, have evolved over time.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how rituals once tied to superstitions or folk beliefs have been transformed into practices of faith and culture. For example, families used to pray during the winter solstice, offering food like shiruko, sweet red bean soup, and even writing family names on prayer lists. But over time, the deeper meaning of these actions seems to have become more about culture rather than the original spiritual significance.
That's right. And in some communities, people used to throw this soup around business premises to drive away evil spirits, or they would pray for their ancestors' spirits. These rituals were intended to fend off misfortune, using symbolic gestures, like the red beans in the soup, which represented the color of blood to scare away ghosts.
Exactly. The red beans symbolized something deeper: fear. It was believed that ghosts, or oni, feared blood, so scattering the beans was a form of protection. This idea of using symbols to ward off negative forces was very common. But as we moved into the knowledge society, these practices started to feel out of place, didn't they?
Yes, in today's knowledge-driven world, we can understand that misfortune often comes not from spiritual forces, but from how we live our lives. Living correctly, aligning with the truth, is what ultimately keeps negativity and hardships away. It's not about scattering beans anymore or praying for a solution. We need to focus on making conscious decisions and living with integrity.
Right, and that brings us to the point that the more we rely on external rituals like praying or offering food to spirits, the more we avoid addressing the root cause of the difficulties in our lives. It's a form of escapism, but as you said, if we live correctly, we naturally avoid misfortune. It's all about personal responsibility, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like when people used to go to temples or shrines, offering prayers and money for their well-being, thinking that it would protect them from misfortune. The truth is, if we keep living in a way that's aligned with ethical principles and wisdom, the need for such rituals fades away. It's not about relying on others to solve our problems, but taking ownership of our actions and choices.
That's a powerful point. It's almost like society used to be in a state of ignorance, relying on rituals to avoid confronting their own behavior. But now, in this knowledge age, we have the tools to reflect, learn, and adjust our actions. Just think about it. Our ancestors' way of thinking was rooted in survival. They used food, prayers, and rituals to cope with things they didn't fully understand. But today, we have the knowledge to deal with life directly, without relying on the supernatural.
And don't you think the real shift now is the idea of living rightly? We're moving away from dependency on rituals and focusing more on inner growth and understanding the true essence of life. It's like understanding the underlying principles of nature and how to live harmoniously within them. This is the new way, the correct law, if you will.
Right. Instead of praying for better fortune, we now must educate ourselves to live in alignment with the natural laws. In the past, it was common to think that certain actions, like visiting a temple or praying to the gods, would bring peace. But now, in this era of knowledge, it's about understanding life on a deeper level, educating ourselves, making wiser choices, and not relying on external forces to fix our lives.
Absolutely. It's like the winter solstice traditions we were talking about. They were ways to manage life's uncertainties in earlier times. But now we can reflect on those traditions, not just as cultural practices, but as learning opportunities, reminding us that true peace comes from within and from the wisdom of knowing how to live rightly.
And let's not forget how this also affects the way we approach the afterlife or ancestors. In the past, there were practices where people prayed for their ancestors, thinking it would help them. But now, it's about living in a way that honors them by embodying the wisdom and lessons they passed down, rather than just praying for their souls.
That's a really important point. The ultimate respect we can show our ancestors is not just through ritual, but by living in a way that reflects the values they imparted. And when we do that, we are not only honoring them, but also creating a better world for ourselves.
Exactly. So, as we move forward in this correct law era, The key takeaway is that we need to embrace knowledge, live with integrity, and stop relying on old rituals as a crutch. This doesn't mean dismissing tradition, it's about understanding its deeper meaning and using that wisdom to guide our lives.
Exactly. As we grow into this new era, we need to remember that our true power lies not in rituals, but in living rightly, in making conscious, educated decisions. So let's stop the cycle of superstition and start focusing on the knowledge that leads to true transformation.
Well said. The winter solstice is no longer about rituals. It's about reflection and understanding, about living wisely and consciously. The new age has arrived, and we are ready to step into it with clarity and purpose.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about escaping difficulties through rituals, but learning from them and growing. That's where true peace and prosperity come from.
Couldn't agree more. Let's keep moving forward, living with knowledge, and making the most out of every day.